May our Father, Messiah, and Holy Spirit be with us. Reading of Ezekiel. We got the buddy in here today, my son. If he screams, he screams. We still gonna get this reading in. In the 30th year, on the 5th day of the 4th moon, when I was in a community of exiles by the Chebar Canal, the heavens opened, and I saw visions of Elohim on the 5th day of the month. It was the 5th year of the exile of King Jehoiachin. The word of our Father in heaven came to the priest Ezekiel, son of Buzai, by the Chebar Canal in the land of the Chaldeans, and the hand of our Father in heaven came upon him there. I looked, and lo, a stormy wind came sweeping out of the north. A huge cloud and flashing fire surrounded by a radiance, and in the center of it, in the center of the fire, a gleam as of amber. In the center of it were also the figures of 4 creatures, and this was their appearances. They had the figures of human beings, however, each had 4 faces, and each of them had 4 wings. The legs of each. If you drive it again, you're not getting it. And I looked, and lo, a stormy wind came sweeping out of the north. A huge cloud of flashing fire surrounded by a radiance, and in the center of it, in the center of the fire, a gleam as of amber. In the center of it were also the figures of 4 creatures, and this was their appearance. They had the figures of human beings, however, each one had 4 faces, and each of them had 4 wings. The legs of each were fused into a single rigid leg, and the feet of each were like a single calf's hoof, and their sparkle was like the luster of burnished bronze. They had human hands below their wings. The 4 of them had their faces and their wings on their 4 sides. Each one's wings touched those of the other. They did not turn when they moved. Each could move in the direction of any. Each one's wings touched those of the others. They did not turn when they moved. Each could move in the direction of any of its faces. Each of them had a human face at the front. Each of the 4 had the face of a lion on the right. Each of the 4 had the face of an ox on the left, and each of the 4 had the face of an eagle at the back. Such were their faces. As for their wings, they were separated above. Each had 2 touching those of the others, while the other 2 covered its body, and each could move in the direction of any of its faces. They went wherever the Spirit impelled them to go, without turning when they moved. Such then was the appearance of the creatures. With them was something that looked like burning coals of fire. This fire, suggestive of torches, kept moving about among the creatures. The fire had a radiance, and lightning issued from the fire. Dashing to and fro among the creatures was something that looked like flares. As I gazed on the creatures, I saw one wheel on the ground next to each of the 4-faced creatures. As for the appearance and structure of the wheels, they gleamed like beryl. All 4 had the same form. The appearance and structure of each was as of 2 wheels cutting through each other, and when they moved, each could move in the direction of any of its 4 quarters. They did not veer when they moved. Their rims were tall and frightening, for the rims of all 4 were covered all over with eyes. And when the creatures moved forward, the wheels moved at their sides. And when the creatures were born above the earth, the wheels were born too. Wherever the Spirit impelled them to go, they went. Wherever the Spirit impelled them, and the wheels were born alongside them, for the spirit of the creatures was in the wheels. When those moved, these moved, and when those stood still, these stood still. And when those were born above the earth, the wheels were born alongside them, for the spirit of the creatures was in the wheels. Above the heads of the creatures was a form, an expanse with an awe-inspiring gleam as of crystal was spread out above their heads. Under the expanse, each had 1 pair of wings extended toward those of the others, and each had another pair covering its body. When they moved, I could hear the sound of their wings, like the sound of mighty waters, like the sound of Shaddai. Like the sound of the Almighty. Shaddai means the Almighty. That's beautiful. A tumult like the din of an army. When they stood still, they would let their wings droop. From above the expanse over their heads came a sound. When they stood still, they would let their wings droop. Above the expanse over their heads was the semblance of a throne, in appearance like sapphire. and on top, upon the semblance of a throne, there was a semblance of a human form. From what appeared as his loins up, I saw a gleam as of amber, what looked like a fire encased in a frame, and from what appeared as his loins down, I saw what looked like fire, that there was a radiance all about him, like the appearance of the bow which shines in the clouds on a day of rain. The rainbow, such was the appearance of the surrounding radiance. Amen. That was the appearance of the semblance of the presence of our Father in heaven. When I beheld it, I flung myself down on my face, and I heard the voice of someone speaking. And he said to me, O mortal, stand up on your feet, that I may speak to you. As he spoke to me, a spirit entered into me and set me upon my feet, and I heard what was being spoke to me. He said to me, O mortal, I am sending you to the people of Israel, that nation of rebels, who have rebelled against me. They, as well as their fathers, have defiled me to this very day. For the sons are brazen of face and stubborn of heart. I send you to them, and you shall say to them, Thus said our Father in heaven, Elohim, whether they listen or not, for they are a rebellious breed, that they may know that there was a prophet among them. And you, mortal, do not fear them, and do not fear their words. Though thistles and thorns press against you, and you sit upon scorpions, do not be afraid of their words, and do not be dismayed by them, though they are a rebellious breed. But speak my words to them, whether they listen or not, for they are rebellious. And you, mortal, heed what I say to you. Do not be rebellious like that rebellious breed. Open your mouth and eat what I am giving you. As I looked, there was a hand stretched out to me, holding a written scroll. He unrolled it before me, and it was inscribed on both the front and the back. On it were written lamentations, dirges, and woes. He said to me, Mortal, eat what is offered you. Eat this scroll and go speak to the house of Israel. So I opened my mouth, and he gave me the scroll to eat. As he said to me, Mortal, feed your stomach and fill your belly with this scroll that I give you. I ate it, and it tasted as sweet as honey to me. Then he said to me, Mortal, go to the house of Israel and repeat my very words to them, for you are sent not to a people of unintelligible speech and difficult language, but to the house of Israel, not to the many peoples of unintelligible speech and difficult language, whose talk you cannot understand. If I sent you to them, they will listen to you. But the house of Israel will refuse to listen to you, for they refuse to listen to me. For the whole house of Israel are brazen of forehead and stubborn of heart. But I will make your face as hard as theirs, and your forehead as brazen as theirs. I will make your forehead like adamant, harder than flint. Do not fear them, and do not be dismayed by them, though they are a rebellious breed. Then he said to me, Mortal, listen with your ears, and receive into your mind all the words that I speak to you. Stop! You did that on purpose, bro. You wanted to be up. So now you're awake, and now you're going to sit here with me as I read the Bible online, because you wanted to wake up early and be like how you wanted to be, bro. So if you're going to be up, we're going to be up, bro. And you're going to go through my whole process and my whole day of what I do in the mornings, because you wanted to be awake and you did not want to go back to sleep with your mom nor me. As you were yawning and still rubbing your eyes, you still want to go to sleep. But that's not what's about to happen, because you wanted to force yourself to be awake. So now you're awake. Now you're with me. Now you're in the gym. Now you're going to read with me, and then you're going to work out and watch me the entire time. And then as I train this brother, Father willing, that I'm about to train, you're going to sit there and you're going to watch me train him as well. That's what you're going to do, bro. Harder than flint. Do not fear them, and do not be dismayed by them, though they are a rebellious breed. Then he said to me, Mortal, listen with your ears and receive into your mind all the words that I speak to you. Go to your people, the exiled community, and speak to them. Say to them, Thus says our Father in heaven, Elohim, whether they listen or not. Then a spirit carried me away, and behind me I heard a great roaring sound. Blessed is the presence of our Father in heaven in his place, with the sound of the wings of the creatures beating against one another, and the sound of the wheels beside them, a great roaring sound. A spirit seized me and carried me away. I went in bitterness in the fury of my spirit, while the hand of our Father in heaven was strong upon me, and I came to the exile community that dwelt in Tel Aviv by the Chabar Canal, and I remained where they dwelt. And for 7 days I sat there, stunned among them. After those 7 days, the word of our Father in heaven came to me. O mortal, I appoint you watchmen for the house of Israel. And when you hear a word from my mouth, you must warn them for me. If I say to you, a wicked man, you shall die, and you do not warn him, you do not speak to warn the wicked man of his wicked course in order to save his life, he, the wicked man, shall die for his iniquity. But I will require a reckoning for his blood from you. But if you do warn the wicked man, and he does not turn back from his wickedness and his wicked course, he shall die for his iniquity, but you will have saved your own life. Again, if a righteous man abandons his righteousness and does wrong, when I put a stumbling block before him, he shall die. He shall die for his sins. The righteous deeds that he did shall not be remembered, but because you did not warn him, I will require a reckoning for his blood from you. If, however, you warn the righteous man not to sin, and he, the righteous, does not sin, he shall live because he took warning, and you will have saved your own life. Bro, I'm not going to give you this again. Here, man. Stop doing that stuff, bro. What? No, bro, I'm not giving you that, bro. Chill out, bro. You get too googly eyed. You better take what you get, bro. That's the last thing I'm giving you. I will require reckoning for his blood from you. If however you warn a righteous man not to sin, and he, the righteous, does not sin, he shall live because he took warning, and you will have saved your own life. Then the hand of our Father in heaven came upon me there, and he said to me, Arise, go out to the valley, and there I will speak with you. I arose and went out to the valley, and there stood the presence of our Father in heaven, like the presence that I had seen at the Chebar canal, and I flung myself down on my face, and the Spirit entered into me and set me upon my feet. And he spoke to me, and he said to me, Go shut yourself up in your house. As for you, O mortal, cords have been placed upon you, and you have been bound with them, and you shall not go out among them. And I will make your tongue cleave to your palate, and you shall be dumb, and you shall not be a reprover to them. For they are a rebellious breed. But when I speak with you, I will open your mouth, and you shall say to them, Thus says our Father in heaven, Elohim. He who listens will listen, and he who does not will not, for they are a rebellious breed. And you, O mortal, take a brick and put it in front of you, and incise on it a city, Jerusalem. Set up a siege against it, and build towers against it, and cast a mound against it, pitch camps against it, and bring up battering rams round about it. Then take an iron plate, and place it as an iron wall between yourself and the city, and set your face against it. Thus it shall be under siege. You shall besiege it. This shall be an omen for the house of Israel. Then lie on your left side, and let it bear the punishment of the house of Israel. For as many days as you lie on it, you shall bear their punishment. For I impose upon you 390 days, corresponding to the number of the years of their punishment. And so you shall bear the punishment for the house of Israel. When you have completed these, you shall lie another 40 days on your right side, and bear the punishment of the house of Jehudah. I impose on you 1 day for each year. Then with bared arm, set your face toward besieged Jerusalem, and prophesy against it. Now I put cords upon you, so that you cannot turn from side to side until you complete your days of siege. Further, take wheat, barley, beans, lentils, millet, and emmer. Put them into one vessel, and bake them into bread. Eat it as many days as you lie on your side. 390, the food that you eat shall be by weight. 20 shekels a day, this you shall eat in the space of a day. And you shall drink water by measure. Drink a sixth of hin in the space of a day. Eat it as a barley cake. You shall bake it on human experiment before their eyes. So said our Father in heaven, shall the people of Israel eat their bread unclean among the nations to which I will banish them. Then I said, our Father in heaven, Elohim, my person was never defiled, nor have I eaten anything that died of itself or was torn by beasts from my youth until now, nor has foul flesh entered my mouth. He answered me, See, I allow you cow's dung instead of human experiment. Prepare your bread on that. And he said to me, O mortal, I'm going to break the staff of bread in Jerusalem, and they shall eat bread by weight, in anxiety, and drink water by measure, in horror, so that lacking bread and water, they shall stare at each other, hearts stick over their iniquity. And you, O mortal, take a sharp knife, use it as a barber's razor, and pass it over your head and beard. Then take scales and divide the hair. When the days of siege are completed, destroy a third part in fire in the city. Take a third and strike it with the sword all around the city, and scatter a third to the wind, and unsheath a sword after them. Take also a few hairs from there and tie them up in your skirts, and take some more of them and cast them into the fire, and burn them in the fire. From this a fire shall go out upon the whole house of Israel. Stop it. Thus said our Father in heaven, Elohim. I set this Jerusalem in the midst of nations, with countries round about her, but she rebelled against my rules and my laws, acting more wickedly than the nations and the countries round about her. She rejected my rules and disobeyed my laws. Assuredly, thus said our Father in heaven, Elohim, because you have outdone the nations that are round about you. You have not obeyed my laws or followed my rules, nor have you observed the rules of the nations round about you. Assuredly, thus said our Father in heaven, Elohim, I in turn am going to deal with you, and I will execute judgments in your midst in the sight of the nations on account of all your abominations. I will do among you what I have never done, and the like of which I will never do again. Assuredly, parents shall eat their children in your midst, and children shall eat their parents. I will execute judgments against you, and I will scatter all your survivors in every direction. Assuredly, as I live, said our Father in heaven, Elohim, because you defiled my sanctuary with all your detestable things, all your abominations, I in turn will shear you away and show no pity. I in turn will show no compassion. 1/3 of you shall die of pestilence or perish in your midst by famine. 1/3 shall fall by the sword around you, and I will scatter 1/3 in every direction. And I will unsheath the sword after them. I will vent on my anger and satisfy my fury upon them. And when I vent all my fury upon them, they shall know that I, our Father in heaven, have spoken in my passion. I will make you a ruin and a mockery among the nations round about you, in the sight of every passerby. And when I execute judgment upon you in anger and rage and furious chastisement, you shall be a mockery and a derision, a warning and a horror to the nations round about you. I, our Father in heaven, have spoken. When I loose the deadly arrows of famine against those doomed to destruction, when I loose them against you to destroy you, I will heap more famine upon you and break your staff of bread. I will let loose against you famine and wild beasts, and they shall bereave you. Pestilence and bloodshed shall sweep through you, and I will bring the sword upon you. I, our Father in heaven, have spoken. The word of our Father in heaven came to me. O mortal, turn your face toward the mountains of Israel and prophesy to them, and say, O mountains of Israel, hear the word of our Father in heaven, Elohim. Thus said our Father in heaven, Elohim, to the mountains and the hills, to the streams and the valleys, say, I will bring a sword against you and destroy your shrines. Your altars shall be wrecked, and your incense stands smashed, and I will hurl down your slain in front of your fetishes. I will cast the corpses of the people of Israel in front of their fetishes, and scatter your bones around your altars and all your settlements. The town shall be laid waste, and the shrine shall be devastated. Thus your altars shall be laid waste. Stop it, bro. Thus your altars shall be laid waste and bear their punishment. Your fetishes shall be smashed and annihilated, your incense stands cut down, and your handiwork wiped out, and the slain shall fall in your midst. Then you shall know that I am my Father in heaven. Yet I will leave a remnant, and that some of you shall escape the sword among the nations and be scattered through the lands. And those of you that escape will remember me among the nations where they have been taken captive. How I was brokenhearted through their faithless hearts, which turned away from me, and through their eyes, which lusted after their fetishes. And they shall loathe themselves for all the evil they committed and for all their abominable deeds. Then they shall realize it was not without cause that I, our Father in heaven, resolved to bring this evil upon them. Thus said our Father in heaven, Elohim, strike your hands together and stamp your feet and cry, Aha, over all the vile abominations of the house of Israel, who shall fall by the sword, by famine, and by pestilence. He who is far away shall die of pestilence, and he who is near shall fall by the sword, and he who survives and is protected shall die of famine. Thus I will spend my fury. Thus I will spend my fury upon them, and you shall know that I am my Father in heaven. When your slain lie among the fetishes round about their altars, on every high hill, on all the mountaintops, under every green tree, and under every leafy oak, wherever they presented pleasing odors to all their fetishes, I will stretch out my hand against them, and lay their hand waste and desolate on all their settlements, from the wilderness as far as Diblah. Then they shall know that I am our Father in heaven. The word of our Father in heaven came to me. You, O mortal, say, Thus said our Father in heaven, bless you, Elohim, to the land of Israel. Doom is coming upon the four corners of the land. Now doom is upon you. I will let loose my anger against you and judge you according to your ways. I will requite you for all your abominations. I will show you no pity and no compassion, but I will requite you for your ways and for the abominations in your midst, and you shall know that I am our Father in heaven. Thus said our Father in heaven, Elohim, a singular disaster. A disaster is coming. Doom is coming. The hour of doom is coming. It stirs against you. There it comes. The cycle has come around for you, O inhabitants of the land. The time has come, the day is near. There is panic on the mountains, not joy. Very soon I will pour out my wrath upon you, and spend my anger on you. I will judge you according to your ways, and I will requite you for all your abominations. I will show you no pity and no compassion, but I will requite you for your ways and for the abominations in your midst, and you shall know it was I, our Father in heaven, who punished. Here is the day. See, the cycle has some ground. It has appeared. The rod has blossomed. Arrogance has budded. Lawlessness has grown into a rod of wickedness. Nothing comes of them, nor of their abundance, nor of their wealth, nor is there permanence among them. The time has come. The day has arrived. Let not the buyer rejoice, nor the seller mourn, for divine wrath shall overtake her, shall overtake all her multitude. For the seller shall not return to what he sold so long as they remain among the living. For the vision concerns all her multitude. It shall not be revoked. And because of his guilt, no man shall hold fast to his life. They have sounded the horn, and all is prepared. But no one goes to battle, for my wrath is directed against all her multitude. The sword is outside, and pestilence and famine are inside. He who is in the open shall die by the sword. He who is in the town shall be devoured by famine and pestilence. And if any survive, they shall take to the mountains. They shall be like doves of the valley, moaning together, every one for his iniquity. All hands shall grow weak, and all knees shall turn to water. They shall gird on sackcloth, and horror shall cover them. Every face shall betray shame, and every head shall be made bald. They shall throw their silver into the streets, and their gold shall be treated as something unclean. Their silver and gold shall not avail to save them in the day of our Father in heaven's wrath, to satisfy their hunger or to fill their stomachs, because they made them stumble into guilt. For out of their beautiful adornments in which they took pride, they make their images and their detestable abominations. Therefore, I will make them an unclean thing to them. I will give them as spoil to strangers, and as plunder to the wicked of the earth, and they shall defile them. I will turn my face from them, and my treasure shall be defiled. Ruffians shall invade it and defile it. Forge the chain, for the land is full of bloody crimes, and the city is full of lawlessness. I will bring in the worst of the nations to take possession of their house. So shall I turn to naught the pride of the powerful, and their sanctuary shall be defiled. Horror comes, and they shall seek safety, but there shall be none. Calamity shall follow calamity, a rumor follow rumor. Then they shall seek vision from the prophet in vain. Instruction shall perish from the priest, and counsel from the elders. The king shall mourn. The prince shall clothe himself with desolation, and the hands of the people of the land shall tremble. I will treat them in accordance with their own ways, and judge them according to their deserts, to their deserts, and they shall know that I am my Father in heaven. In the 6th year, on the 5th day of the 6th month, I was sitting at home, and the elders of Jehudah were sitting before me. And there the hand of our Father in heaven, Elohim, fell upon me. As I looked, there was a figure that had the appearance of fire. From what appeared as his loins down, he was fire, and from his loins up, his appearance was resplendent, and had the color of amber. He stretched out the form of a hand, and took me by the hair of my head. A spirit lifted me up between heaven and earth, and brought me in visions of Elohim to Jerusalem, to the entrance of Penamith gate that faces north. That was the sight of the infuriating image that provokes fury, and the presence of Elohim of Israel appeared there like the vision that I had seen in the valley. And he said to me, O mortal, turn your eyes northward. I turned my eyes northward, and there north of the gate of the altar was that infuriating image on the approach. And he said to me, Mortal, do you see what they are doing, the terrible abominations that the house of Israel is practicing here, to drive me far from my sanctuary? You shall yet see even greater abominations. Then he brought me to the entrance of the court, and I looked, and there was a hole in the wall. He said to me, Mortal, break through the wall. So I broke through the wall and found an entrance. And he said to me, Enter and see the vile abominations that they are practicing here. I entered and looked, and there all detestable forms of creeping things and beasts, and all the fetishes of the house of Israel were depicted over the entire wall. Before them stood 70 men, elders of the house of Israel, with Jazaniah son of Shaphan standing in the midst. Everyone had a censer in his hand, and a thick cloud of incense smoke ascended. And again he spoke to me, O mortal, have you seen what the elders of the house of Israel are doing in the darkness? Everyone in his image covered chamber. For they say, Our Father in heaven does not see us. Our Father in heaven has abandoned the country. And he said to me, You shall see, even more terrible abominations which they practice. Next he brought me to the entrance of the north gate of the house of our Father in heaven, and there sat the woman bewailing to most. He said to me, Have you seen, O mortal? You shall see even more terrible abominations than these. Then he brought me into the inner court of the house of our Father in heaven, and there at the entrance of the temple of our Father in heaven, between the portico and the altar, were about 25 men, their backs to the temple of our Father in heaven, and their faces to the east. They were bowing low to the sun in the east. And he said to me, Do you see, O mortal? Is it not enough for the house of Jehudah to practice the abominations that they have committed here, that they must fill the country with lawlessness and provoke me still further, and thrust a branch to their nostrils? I in turn will act with fury. I will show no pity or compassion. Though they cry aloud to me, I will not listen to them. Then he called loudly in my hearing, saying, Approach, you men in charge of the city, each bearing his weapons of destruction. And 6 men entered by war of the upper gate that faces north, each with his club in his hand. And among them was another, clothed in linen, with a writing case at his waist. They came forward and stopped at the bronze altar. Now the presence of the Elohim of Israel had moved from the cherub on which it had rested to the platform of the house. He called to the man clothed in linen with the writing case at his waist. And our Father in heaven said to him, Pass through the city, through Jerusalem, and put a mark on the foreheads of the men who moan and groan because of all the abominations that are committed in it. To the others he said in my hearing, Follow him through the city and strike, show no pity or compassion. Kill off gray beard, youth and maiden, women and children, but do not touch any person who bears the mark. It talks about the marks a lot. Begin here at my sanctuary. So they began with the elders who were in front of the house, and he said to them, Defile the house and fill the courts with the slain. Then go forth. So they went forth and began to kill in the city. When they were out killing, and I remained alone, I flung myself on my face and cried out, our Father in heaven, Elohim, are you going to annihilate all that is left of Israel, pouring out your fury upon Jerusalem? He answered me, The iniquity of the houses of Jehudah and Israel is very, very great. The land is full of crime, and the city is full of corruption. For they say, Our Father in heaven has forsaken the land, and our Father in heaven does not see. I in turn will show no pity or compassion. I will give them their deserts, and I will give them their deserts. And then the man, clothed in linen with the writing case at his waist, brought back word, saying, I have done as you commanded me. I looked in on the expanse over the heads of the cherubs. There was something like a sapphire stone, an appearance resembling a throne. An appearance resembling a throne could be seen over them. He spoke to the man clothed in linen and said, Step inside the wheelwork under the cherubs and fill your hands with glowing coals from among the cherubs and scatter them over the city. And he went, and as I looked on, now the cherubs were standing on the south side of the house when the man entered, and the cloud filled the inner court. But when the presence of our Father in heaven moved from the cherubs to the platform of the house was filled with the cloud, and the court was filled with the radiance of the presence of our Father in heaven. The sound of the cherubs' wings could be heard as far as the outer court, like the voice of El Shaddai, the Almighty, when he speaks. When he commanded the man dressed in linen, take fire from among the cherubs within the wheelwork, he went and stood beside a wheel, and a cherub stretched out his hand among the cherubs. To the fire that was among the cherubs, he took some and put it into the hands of him who was clothed in linen, who took it and went out. The cherubs appeared to have the form of a man's hands, to have a man's hand under their wings. I could see that there were 4 wheels beside the cherubs, 1 wheel beside each of the cherubs. As for the appearance of the wheels, they gleamed like the beryl stone. In appearance, the 4 had the same form, as if there were 2 wheels cutting through each other. And when they moved, each could move in the direction of any of its 4 quarters. They did not veer as they moved. The cherubs moved in the direction in which one of the heads faced, without turning as they moved. Their entire bodies, backs, hands, and wings, and the wheels of the 4 of them were covered all over with eyes. It was these wheels that I had heard called the wheelwork. Each one had 4 faces. One was a cherub's face, the second a human face, the third a lion's face, and the 4th an eagle's face. The cherubs ascended. Those were the creatures that I had seen by the Chebar Canal. Whenever the cherubs went, the wheels went beside them, and when the cherubs lifted their wings to ascend from the earth, the wheels did not fall. The wheels did not roll away from their side. When those stood still, these stood still, and when those ascended, these ascended with them, for the spirit of the creature was in them. Then in the presence of our Father in heaven left the platform. Then the presence of our Father in heaven left the platform of the house and stopped above the cherubs. And I saw the cherubs lift their wings and rise from the earth, with the wheels beside them as they departed. And they stooped and they stopped at the entrance of the eastern gate of the house of our Father in heaven, with the presence of the Elohim Israel above them. They were the same creatures that I had seen below the Elohim Israel at the Chebar Canal. So now I knew that they were cherubs. Each one had 4 faces, and each had 4 wings, with the form of human hands under the wings. As for the forms of their faces, they were the very faces that I had seen by the Chebar Canal. Their appearance and their features, and each could move in the direction of any of its faces. Then the Spirit lifted me up and brought me to the east gate of the house of our Father in heaven, which faces eastward, and there at the entrance of the gate were 25 men, among whom I saw Jezaniah, son of Azor, Palatiah, son of Benaiah, leaders of the people. Our Father in heaven said to me, O mortal, these are the men who plan iniquity and plot wickedness in this city, who say there is no need now to build houses. This city is the pot, and we are the meat. I adjure you, prophesy against them, prophesy, O mortal. Thereupon the Spirit of our Father in heaven fell upon me, and he said to me, Speak thus said our Father in heaven, such are your thoughts, O house of Israel. I know what comes into your mind. Many have you slain in this city. You have filled its streets with corpses. Assuredly thus says our Father in heaven, Elohim, the corpses that you have piled up in it are the meat for which it is the pot, but you shall be taken out of it. You feared the word, you feared the sword, and the sword I will bring upon you, declares our Father in heaven, Elohim. I will take you out of it and deliver you into the hands of strangers, and I will execute judgments upon you. You shall fall by the sword. I will punish you at the border of Israel, and you shall know that I am our Father in heaven. This city shall not be a pot for you, nor you the meat in it. I will punish you at the border of Israel. Then you shall know that I am our Father in heaven, whose laws you did not follow, and whose rules you did not obey, acting instead according to the rules of the nations around you. Now as I prophesied, Pelatiah, son of Benaiah, dropped dead. I threw myself upon my face and cried out aloud, our Father in heaven, Elohim, you are wiping out the remnant of Israel. Then the word of our Father in heaven came to me, O mortal, I will save your brothers, the men of your kindred, all of that very house of Israel, to whom the inhabitants of Jerusalem say, Keep far from our Father in heaven. The land has been given as a heritage to us. Say then, thus said our Father in heaven, Elohim, I have indeed removed them far among the nations, and have scattered them among the countries, and I have become to them a diminished sanctity in the countries where they have gone. Yet say, thus said our Father in heaven, Elohim, I will gather you from the peoples and assemble you out of the countries where you have been scattered, and I will give you the land of Israel, and they shall return there and do away with all its detestable things and all its abominations. I will give them one heart and put a new spirit in them. I will remove the heart of stone from their bodies and give them a heart of flesh, that they may follow my laws and faithfully observe my rules. Then they shall be my people, and I will be their Elohim. But as for them whose heart is set upon their detestable things and their abominations, I will repay them for their conduct, declares our Father in heaven, Elohim. Then the cherubs with the wheels beside them lifted their wings, while the presence of the Elohim of Israel rested above them. The presence of our Father in heaven ascended from the midst of the city and stood on the hill east of the city. A spirit carried me away and brought me in a vision by the Spirit of Elohim to the exile community in Chaldea. Then the vision that I had seen left me, and I told the exiles all the things that our Father in heaven had shown me. The word of our Father in heaven came to me, O mortal, you dwell among the rebellious breed. They have eyes to see, but see not, ears to hear, but hear not, for they are a rebellious breed. Therefore, mortal, get yourself gear for exile, and go into exile by day before their eyes. Go into exile from your home to another place before their very eyes. Perhaps they will take note, even though they are a rebellious breed. Carry out your gear for exile by day before their very eyes, and go out again in the evening before their eyes, as one who goes out into the exile before their eyes. Break through the wall and carry the gear out before their eyes. Carry it on your shoulder. Take it out in the dark, and cover your face, that you may not see the land. For I make you a portent to the house of Israel. I did just as I was ordered. I took out my gear by day as gear for exile, and in the evening I broke through the wall with my own hands. In the darkness I carried the gear out on my shoulder, carrying it before their eyes. In the morning the word of our Father never came to me, O mortal, did not the house of Israel, that rebellious breed, ask you, what are you doing? Say to them, thus said our Father in heaven, Elohim. This pronouncement concerns the prince in Jerusalem and all the house of Israel who are in it, say, I am important for you, as I have done. So shall it be done to them. They shall go into exile, into captivity, and the prince among them shall carry his gear on his shoulder. As he goes out in the dark, he shall break through the wall in order to carry his gear out through it. He shall cover his face, because he himself shall not see the land. With his eyes I will spread my net over him. He shall be caught in my snare. I will bring him to Babylon, the land of the Chaldeans, but he shall not see it, and there he shall die. And all those around him, his helpers, and all his troops, I will scatter in every direction, and I will unsheath the sword after them. Then when I have scattered them among the nations and dispersed them to the countries, that they shall know that I am my Father in heaven. But I will spare a few of them from the sword, from famine, and from pestilence, that they may recount all their abominable deeds among the nations to which they come. And they shall know that I am my Father in heaven. The word of our Father in heaven came to me. O mortal, eat your bread in trembling, and drink your water in fear and anxiety, and say to the people of the land, thus said our Father in heaven, Elohim, concerning the inhabitants of Jerusalem and the land of Israel, they shall eat their bread in anxiety and drink their water in desolation, because their land will be desolate of its multitudes on account of the lawlessness of all its inhabitants. The inhabited town shall be laid waste, and the land shall become a desolation. Then you shall know that I am our Father in heaven. The word of our Father in heaven came to me. O mortal, what is this proverb that you have in the land of Israel, that you say the days grow many, and every vision comes to naught? Assuredly say to them, thus said our Father in heaven, Elohim, I will put an end to this proverb. It shall not be used in Israel anymore. Speak rather to them, the days draw near, and the fulfillment of every vision, for there shall no longer be any false vision or soothing the divination in the house of Israel. But wherever I, our Father in heaven, speak what I speak, that word shall be fulfilled without any delay. In your days, over rebellious breed, I will fulfill every word I speak, declares our Father in heaven, Elohim. The word of our Father in heaven came to me. See, O mortal, the house of Israel says, the vision that he sees is far ahead, and he prophesies for the distant future. Assuredly say to them, thus said our Father in heaven, Elohim, there shall be no more delay whenever I speak a word. That word shall be fulfilled, declares our Father in heaven, Elohim. I'm going to take him back upstairs now, family. Father, one will be able to continue our reading when we get back.